G'day, boys. How you doing?
Good, Chief.
Good afternoon.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Yes, fantastic.
Fantastic.
That's, someone who's been around me. Today we've got a special guest. He's a young man that I've known for many years in my life. He's an aspiring journalist. He's finished now. You finished all your
Yeah, I
studies?
graduated 2 years ago. So.
Okay, and you've been traveling quite a fair bit and doing your own things. And I think that I've been inspired by a lot of things that you've done throughout your travel too.
Oh, yeah?
And so I wanted you to share a few things about that.
Okay.
And probably talk a little bit more about journalism, especially for the moment. There's people saying that you guys are full of fake news, and there's people who say, no, we're going to have to be...
Who are those people, mate? Who would those people be?
Well, they usually in America, and the house is white. And so let's talk about this and let's have a look. So why don't you introduce yourself, Nic?
I'm Nic Ford. I graduated from journalism in Chante-Alouette University in Bathurst in 2019. And since then, I travelled around South America for the majority of last year, and then came back and just looking for work now, I guess. But it's been this the landscape now is just extremely different, so it's pretty difficult.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in what way is it difficult?
This year particularly, there's been mass layoffs across Australian Associated Press and BuzzFeed, and lots of like organisations getting shut down. So like there's thousands of journalists.
Because of COVID?
Like surprisingly, yes, but it was happening before then as well. So many organisations are just getting cut back. Like I interned at Reuters for a couple of months, and when I was at Reuters, they said the team, which was like 6 people, they said we've had to let so many people go in the recent months because they were getting cut back, and that was 2018. So the whole industry is getting downsized.
Right.
It's mostly an online thing, wasn't it? The cutback started when paper media, print media started going out of fashion. Yeah,
because like you have to buy a newspaper, then there's a lot more revenue in that, but now there's no revenue. So and that's where a lot of problems with the new news is coming through.
Yep.
There's a lot more opinion pieces now and less research.
Okay.
That's where everything comes from.
Bloody opinions, they're like arseholes. Everyone's got to have one.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense when you sort of makes sense when you think about it, and everything going on to an online format, print media. A lot of jobs would have been lost, both in the manufacturing of the print and actually finding the news. So would that then lead, do you think, to people maybe not doing a lot of research into the news that they're reporting?
Absolutely, yeah, because research and doing at least critical research as well. So if you're going to take on a big power like a big business or a politician, and you got to research that a lot, right? So research takes time, which costs a lot of money. And then after it's published and you get a lot of pushback from a business, then you have to, there's litigation if you get sued or defamation or anything like that. So critical journalism is taking a big hit because there's a lot more research that costs too much money. And then after that, you have to keep going down the same line, and that costs a lot of money to keep going. So that gets hit first. So that's a lot. That's the first thing to go, really.
What's the rules around that? Do they have to write?
Hey, guys, let's slow down. Let the kid have a little bit of fun. Normally we are wine and wisdom shit, right? So
we've jumped into
we're full of wisdom when we talk to idiots, and we're full of wine
when we talk to smart people.
Yeah, that's right. So this week here, lately we've changed a bit of our system. Unfortunately, we might break the rule.
The one bottle rule came, went.
We've still got one bottle and it's friends.
Yeah. And so,
what was the rule?
Well, we used to drink 3 bottles of wine.
No, one each. Yeah.
And we thought it wasn't going to be healthy for us to continue. So last week we changed it to 1 bottle of wine, but a more really expensive bottle, a more premium bottle. And it appears as though
going out the window.
At the end of the bottle, we were left wanting.
The funniest part of the whole thing is none of us spoke to each other, and we've all bought a spare bottle. I think we're.
So usually, right now, what we're going is we only have 1 bottle, but that bottle has to be around $100.
Can't be more than $100.
Can't be more. No. Can't be less. If it's less, well, you better get the other bottles. And if you have the worst bottle out of the 3. So we now the second week you have to buy another bottle worth $100.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're not doing a good job, you could actually be up for $200 of wine in 3 bottles. Okay. So this week
you might as well call the fight. Stop the fight, ladies and gentlemen. We have a winner.
How can you have a winner? I haven't done mine yet.
I haven't stopped smiling since I bought this. I'm excited. So we have in front of us a 2012 Chante-Alouette from Hermitage in Rhone, the Rhone region of France. It is rated in the top 1% in the world for wines on Vivino.
Wow.
Hermitage is famous as the best grapes in the world for winemaking.
Yes, according to Master Soms, it is the best grape, the most structured wine you can ever taste.
So the Chante-Alouette is actually a hill in the Hermitage, and it's named after,
A bird.
No, it's named after a hutch that is at the bottom of that hill that used to house the hunters and the bird chasers and the bird watchers. It's not a Chardonnay, it's not a Sauv Blanc, it's the Marcini grape, or Marcinet, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Stop touching the microphone, Jono.
Yeah, that's all right. It's okay. He's a guest, so he doesn't understand. You can't touch a microphone.
Okay.
And the winery it's from, the original Mr. Chapateur, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He was actually the first person in the region to both grow and produce his own wine. Everyone was growing it there, but other people were producing it. And the notes I read suggested that he wasn't happy with what was being produced, so he brought his own out.
You imagine that a place that's got roughly 100 acres,
Yeah, wow.
right, and is renowned as being the best grape on the planet.
Wow.
100 acres, you know? It's just one side of a hill. When you drive up north, you can see that side, and that's it. And Chapoutier owns most of it.
Sapouchier. Okay, wrong pronunciation. Chapetier. All right. Now, this can be found in the Burgundy region of Dan Murphy's. Along the back wall, my favourite wall, where it takes you right around the world. It was in the Burgundy section. It was on the shelf for $99, and then big fella got to the checkout and they scanned it. Oh, you got a Dan Murphy's card, sir? Yes, $59.
I'll be going there on the way home.
So the big fella went back to the shelf and grabbed a couple more bottles because $40 discount.
Yeah.
$40 discount, but
same.
everywhere I've looked, it's $99. So you can't.
We have to spend $100.
I
You
did.
bought
I
two
bought
bottles.
more, mate. I bought more. I spent more than $100. Don't worry. So let's rip in because I haven't been excited for a long time.
Enough
Come on,
talk.
let's give it to our guest first.
Thank you.
We're going to give it to him, I think.
And just to give you a bit of an idea, the reason we're doing Wine and Wisdom is this. We like to talk shit among friends because we work very hard.
Yeah.
But then we use wine because there is a line in Latin that says in vino veritas. So through wine, the truth emerges. And so I'm not expecting the truth to come out from you over the next 5 minutes, but hopefully after one glass, right? The fake news going to come out and
My fake news.
Look at the colour of that.
That's good.
Beautiful.
the color I like. Come on, boys.
Cheers.
Good to have you here, mate.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
You smell it as soon as you have it.
You're not a white drinker, Chris, so I hope you're going to appreciate
That
this.
is not good.
That's really good.
It's not good.
Not good for me. I'm coming out.
I'm not a white drinker, but that's really nice.
Oh, that's shit. I'm sorry, that's shit.
Holy jolly.
Can't drink this anymore. I'm sorry. It's already lost for the week.
You're not meant to scull it, Nick.
Oh, I was enjoying it too much.
The man was thirsty. Leave him alone.
I just finished university, so old habits die hard.
So how long is university? How long does a journalist go to university for?
Depends on the course, but mine was just 3 years. My experience was that definitely wasn't enough. I don't want to knock my university, but it was a pretty bad course.
But okay, so is there a difference in journalism courses at university? I'm knowing because I don't know. I'm asking because I don't know.
I can't tell because I only did one course.
Okay.
Quite obviously, Chris has never been to university, mate.
And you have?
You'll pick that up. I did a semester. I've done contract law. I did a semester.
And I went to
contract
university to cement render and build an extension to a.
I've been to the school. I've been to the school.
Science lab.
Yeah, I've been to the school of hard knocks.
Okay, so and then so for 3 years at uni, and then is it like becoming a doctor? Do you specialise in political journalism, or it's just journalism altogether? And
The one thing that really annoyed me about journalism at CSU was that we didn't do one topic on politics. Like, no one left that university with a good understanding of what politics was.
Right.
It was just, I've always been really into politics, so that was fine for me. Like, that was annoying for me, but all the other journalists are going into the field completely uncritical. They could be handed something by politicians and they'll just take it, read it verbatim and think it's fact.
right.
They don't have their own ideology or beliefs, which is probably it's not a good thing. They're not critical thinkers when they left.
I think we can pretty much sum up what politics is here for you, mate. It's fucked.
Yeah. Where is it not
It's
fucked?
running the world into the ground. There's your education, okay? Now we've got to work out how fucked, why it's fucked, and who's fucking it.
I'm well aware of the system. Yeah.
I love Robin Williams' take on politicians. He said politicians are like babies' nappies. They should be changed as often, and they're full of the same thing.
Oh, he's a loss to the world, that bloke.
Mate,
he's a loss to the world.
You know what? We were speaking last week, just briefly on a side point, we were speaking last week about people having their SMS, their self, their mindset, and the skill mindset and self. And you look at people like Robin Williams, and you think, just if he spent a little bit more time on that self, could he have been changed? There's a lot of people like that, Heath Ledger and so forth. So,
Would he have been as funny though? Or as
that's a good point too. That in that deep depths of depression, on the other side of that, because he was a manic depressive, he may have come out. Bipolar. So on the other side of that is where he gets his humour and so forth. Yeah. A lot of that was done with substances too, though, as well.
A lot of the most creative people on the planet. They talk about actors. It's very hard to find a good actor that doesn't have a few screws loose.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedians are some of the darkest.
That's true.
Messed up people on the planet off the stage, and that's probably where they draw from on that inspiration. So you think, I wish he could have sorted himself out, but then would he have been Robin Williams? Probably not.
Exactly right. Good point.
Probably not.
Good point.
Yeah, but then whose mother would love to have a child who's a famous comedian and died around the age of 53?
100% agree, but would we wouldn't be having this? Would we still be having this conversation?
Yeah, that's right. If he wasn't,
if he wasn't, didn't have his issues.
I probably would have put up with having his humour not as great, but having him around.
Yep.
Right. So I don't know, boys. It's something we can discuss.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your journalism.
You've
been travelling.
Yeah.
So what's the goal with travel? You've been studying at the same time travelling?
Yeah, well, during university, I didn't get much time off, so I didn't really do much travel during my studies. So as soon as I finished, I was just on the first plane out, and that was all of last year.
Yeah. Where did you go?
I arrived in Chile, Argentina, Brazil, and then Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, and then I flew over to meet my girlfriend at the time in Portugal, Spain, and then then Poland, and then Greece, Norway, Iceland, and then the US, and then Cuba, and then home.
Oh wow! So all of that in the name of journalism?
No. I was just writing for
a lot of it sounds like it was in the name of cocaine. I'm just going to throw that out there. I've seen a few of those countries on a few documentaries.
I'm not going to be able to comment on that.
Is that how you got your deposit for your first home?
Yeah, met up with cocaine. I was Coke and Cassie in Colombia. You know the story, yeah?
No.
I think she was an Australian girl that she was.
Girl from Melbourne who got busted two years ago.
The mule?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's still in.
Cocaine Cassie.
Yep.
Yeah, you should have heard about it. Yeah, I think she's still over there. She's stuck in a Colombian prison.
Yeah.
Wow.
You met up with her?
No, God. No.
Oh, okay.
He handed her
This would have been the end of this podcast.
that was a joke.
What's that helicopter sound out? You weren't in carry-on yesterday, were you, mate? How was that when you turned up?
But before that, you travelled too. I remember you've gone by yourself on a motorbike in India, or was it that very, very narrow road between India and Nepal, or
India and China?
Right, I see.
Yeah, so we went right to the border with Tibet.
Yeah,
and obviously you can't go further. You hear there was news recently that the border just flared up and some people on both sides died. But yeah, we went to that area, and it was relatively safe. But the amount of military on the Indian side was just ridiculous. Every few kilometers you'd pass another base, and we were driving we were on the bike for 4 or 5 days, and every you'd pass 4 or 5 bases every day, more than that at the minimum. So
and this is the border of India and China, right?
Yeah.
Because it's been it's in the Himalayas, yeah.
Yep.
Because it's a very hot area of dispute in the territory, the line of.
Well, it is now.
I think it always has been, but it's flared up recently.
It flared up recently.
Yeah,
it's the longest disputed border in the world.
That's right.
Yeah. So
India's got it on all sides, don't they? Because don't they fight with Pakistan over the border?
Yeah, they don't like
well?
the Pakistanis on the border there as well. They're
Sri Lanka.
Well, that's the same province as well.
Yeah, okay.
Where that's been all flared up. So it's a hot area, and Like, not many people should be going there anymore because...
Like a good Vindaloo.
Flared up.
It's a hot.
Burns twice.
So may I ask you, because obviously now what you're trying to say is that as a journalist you have to have that kind of spirit that is a bit inquisitive.
Oh, absolutely,
So why that part of the world first, and then at the end of your studies, why South America, which is totally the opposite of India?
Well, that was more just like more of a gap year. It wasn't as much journal. I tried to do a bit of journalism while I was traveling around. Like I met up with few people that lived in the favelas and stuff, and I talked to them about like I interviewed them and asked them about like what the life was there, and like there's a new government that's in power who's completely changed everything. So I got to just discuss with them about that, but mostly it was just traveling and learning the language as well.
Yeah. But why journalism?
Why journalism? I just find politics really interesting. Like it's my bread and
Then
butter.
why not do politics? Why do journalists
Because I
and
love
not politics?
We all love to hate politicians. I don't want to join them, you know.
Why, mate? You wouldn't have had to take a pay cut and you'd be gainfully employed right now. You'd be the only people on the planet gainfully employed.
I don't know.
Plus, look at you, man. As a politician, you'd have sex appeal. I mean, the three of us, we've got the voice for podcasts.
That's right.
Face for podcasts, but you would have the face for movies.
But you have to be unattractive to get into politics, don't you?
We're right there.
Just your soul. Just only your soul has
Wine
to
and
be
wisdom
unattractive.
party.
There aren't too many good-looking politicians, are there?
Very few.
That's a good topic. Let's talk about that.
No. I think Scott Morrison looks good.
Yeah.
Listen, and my favorite, Pauline Hanson, looks amazing.
Oh,
Guys,
surely
do not put that down.
we can agree that she doesn't look good.
I meant to talk about your inspirational leader last
With
week.
Pauline Hanson. You know, she
What
applied
about
for-
she gets on the Today Show and says they're talking about the people in the Housing Commission towers in Melbourne being locked down? Your leader, your inspirational leader, just says, well, if they bloody didn't deal drugs and learnt to speak English before they got in the country, they'd be fine. She's been
was thinking
sacked.
about me.
She's been sacked.
Oh, dear me. Poor Pauline.
So, what does it take to be a good journalist?
It's a tough question. I guess
Do you need rich parents that allow you to travel around the world?
it's a good prerequisite.
A prerequisite, is it?
It's not necessary. No. A good journalist is someone who just researches and doesn't pick sides, just looks at the facts.
What does the industry count as a good journalist, though? Because is a good journalist someone who gets the most clicks and has the most exposure, or is a good journalist someone who actually
Exposed to the truth.
does the critical thinking and investigation but has a lot less coverage because no one wants to hear that shit?
Well, it depends on who you are. Like if you're the CEO of an organisation, the most clicks.
But within the industry, so there's three of us sitting around the table right now, and we're real estate agents, and we have a rough idea on what we think makes a good real estate agent. But there's a debate over whoever sells the most houses versus who gets the most money versus what commission you charge and all that sort of thing. Now, from the outside looking in and seeing some of the rubbish that goes on as far as clickbait headlines, it seems to be rewarded.
Yeah.
You're more rewarded, you're more likely to get on TV if you
Well,
clickbait headlines. So is that what we're calling a good journalist, or are we calling a good journalist someone who's probably going by the wayside by doing spending a bit more time?
Well, it's like the most successful journalist isn't the best journalist. It's just the journalist that gets the most clicks.
Okay.
That's what the industry is now, because it's more based on, for a large part, profit and getting clicks. So you have to be profit. But like journalists are better these days that can produce content on scale.
Yep.
And that don't have to put as much input into it. Like research is a lot of input, so that's why you see more opinion pieces these days with less fact.
So then, obviously, that as we said before, that critical journalism going in and investigating things is going by the wayside.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more so in, I think, the US system rather than the Australian system. Like the Australian print is really taking a huge hit, but it's gone in the opposite direction in the US, where like as long as you, like say for example with Trump in power, all you got to do is just be anti-Trump, and that'll get you where you want to go, regardless if he does something good or bad. If you're on TV and you say something that's remotely like supportive of Trump, then you'll get taken down, and you'll get a huge like reaction, and it won't be good for your career.
Right.
But why is that? I mean, you said earlier a good journalist doesn't pick side.
No, absolutely. I'm not saying that's what a good journalist is. I'm saying the most successful journalists do that. They pick sides.
They pick sides.
Yeah. So there's a difference between the most successful journalist and the best journalist. They aren't the same.
Oh, I see.
So look at yourself and you looked into the future and you know where you want to be, but if you can't get there without just becoming a clickbaity journalist, how long are you going to if you've got to live on the poverty line to tell the truth, how long till
Yeah,
that?
but good journalists live on poverty line.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. How long till
Money
that?
is not what drives them, mate. It's the truth.
Well, how many good journalists have turned into the others then because you can't get paid at the moment?
And
That's
then
what I'm
they
asking.
yeah.
So
They have
that sort
parents.
of pressure,
me-
that sort of pressure's got to be huge, right?
Oh,
You're
it is.
moving into the career, hopefully.
But I think like, I'm taking a different approach. Like in the future, there's going to be a lot of move away from print into video because the video is a lot more digestible and people much easier to watch a video than. So I'm getting a lot more into video and filming and animating and editing videos. So that would be my asset, hopefully, going forward.
Yep.
And I can still, be a good journalist, but getting into writing is just not going to be as, useful in the future.
the pressure's still going to be on you to be controversial, though, in whatever you do, because
Yeah, of course.
controversy is money, yeah?
Of course.
So how do you fight that?
Is it controversial or getting into a controversial video?
No.
Like, for example, Christiane Amanpour. I never heard of her until the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
When the Iraq War happened I think it was with the first George Bush.
The first one?
She was the one who was over there doing some coverage. And suddenly when she came back, she became part of the furniture. And so straight away, when the second war happened, she was sent directly. So is journalism about marketing?
Absolutely, yeah. It depends. Like, you can't really equate what happens on CNN these days with good journalism, because they print so much stuff at scale and they don't look into anything anymore. There's no more like justification for what they do. But it all started with like CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. They realized a long time ago they'd make a lot more money if they started presenting news like sports teams. We all love to follow a certain rugby team or whatever. If they made politicians like that, they would make more money. So, and if you watch CNN or MSNBC, their sports team is the Democrats. If you watch Fox News, their sports team is the Republicans. And now you're emotionally investing in it, so you're going to watch that channel more. News used to be on TV.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
News used to be on TV that you would just try and be really accurate and you try and get as much of the market as possible. You're aiming to get 100% of the audience. A while ago, Fox News realized they would get a lot more views if they just focused on 35%, like 30% of the market, and just gave them the news they wanted.
Yeah.
And then CNN, MSNBC picked that up. So now they have news that's tailor-made to what people want to hear. And that's what's really changed in the US and kind of flowing over now into the Australian market.
Just on a technical note, in all the articles that we read, is there any legislation or what are the rules around? You've talked about now most of the articles are opinion rather than critical investigation. Mm-hmm. Is there any requirement or regulation on that it has to be written opinion under the headline or no? So the average Joe who's out there who just wants to read a headline or an article and take it as absolute gospel, there's nothing for them to know, hang on, this is just this person's opinion?
It depends if it can be labelled as slanderous or there's a few regulations behind that. But
so there's no boxes you have to tick to make it.
As long as for radio and for TV, if you're saying something that's going to be like pretty bad against a politician, or you need to say in my opinion before you make that statement, and then you can pretty much say whatever you want after that.
Interesting, but there's nothing in the written that says. I know a guy who reads the news for a radio station, and he's completely liable for anything that he puts to air. He's got to find the news, research the news, fact check the news. He gets to say whatever he wants, but he's completely responsible for any repercussions of what goes on in that. So he always tells me he's knocking off work at 3 o'clock, and I go, mate, you read the news at 6 a.m. What are you doing till 3 o'clock? He said, fact checking, because I have to make sure that whatever I'm putting out. But
and see, that's a big problem when the profit lines get smaller. And that guy still needs to be paid for the hours that he's fact checking.
Yeah. So
that's another cost to the market. So if you're putting out more opinion pieces that don't have as much fact in it, that's not going to cost as much to make.
But that's what I was asking. How do they clarify an opinion piece from
They write opinion on it. If you go onto CNN, for example, you'll see opinion in front of it or analysis in front of it. I know it's not here, but you can see it in things.
People are just
every time there's an article, you'll have that. It's opinion, analysis, or they say breaking news, or so that they report it, like verbatim.
Okay.
But today, especially like in this part of this age, you can go online and find any report you want to enforce or to help you believe whatever you want to believe. There's 1,000 different reports coming out all the time about different things, even though they're incorrect. All you need to do is say, this report said this. You don't need to go into if the report was factual, if it's been completely destroyed. all you need to say is just like, I found this report. It says this.
Studies have shown.
Exactly. Yeah. How often do people you hear that? Like, this study said this, yada yada, and that's too easy. Like, and this often is like the lobby groups or the government will hand these over, and it's just cheaper for journalists to pick them up and then just rewrite them verbatim. You know.
Okay, so here's the thing now. Let's get into this because we're now into our second glass.
It's getting better, by the way. How good?
For someone like me,
Fantastic.
what do I have to do to make sure I'm not falling victim of fake news? Let's imagine I'm going to get onto the news and research about something. How do I know what's fake news and what's not? For example, one of the things, I have even very close members of the family who believe that the mask thing is, wearing a mask is against liberty, wearing a mask doesn't stop stuff, wearing a mask is this. And then you look at the figures in America, where I said about 2 weeks ago, America is going to be just crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's the social distancing and not wearing a mask that's killing it.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we know? Because those guys now, even in Texas now it's gone, and where in Florida it's gone, and bashing every kind of record. How would they know the difference between fake and real?
I think that's an extremely difficult thing to be able to do, to be able to decipher what is true and what is not. I think the only best answer I could think of is just make sure you get your news from a very diverse mix, from a lot of different places. That's the only way you can really make an informed opinion.
So for example, if you were to write something, right, what's the process?
I try and be like a good journalist, and I try to go through actual factual things that have happened, and use maybe like UN references and stuff like that. The UN is really good, and that's a good place where you can know if something actually happened or not. There's a lot of voting records that people don't talk about as much in the UN. I don't know. Besides that, you got to try and find the words of people that have actually said. I really try to avoid this study said this and that study said that, because you can just pick up anything that way.
Yeah. In wisdom, we have a lot of studies.
Do you present both sides of the argument, though, rather than just one? Because even the critical thinkers that you would consider are generally only presenting one side of the argument.
Yeah, it's difficult to that.
Mask is an easy one. Do you wear a mask or don't you wear a mask? If you're writing an article on that, do you write the pros and cons? Yes, you wear a mask because this person said this, but maybe you don't because this person said this.
That's difficult because there's been a lot of arguments in the US where people have been saying in these hearings where I put a mask on and I can't breathe, and there's too much CO2, and it's all just nonsense. So it depends how far you want to go with that. I know it is extremely difficult, but
yeah, I mean, and then there's the idiots who wear a mask in their own car, and you're driving past them, you go, you're on your own.
You know what? That's like
you're not killing anyone.
That's like wearing a condom in bed when you're by yourself. Seriously.
But I think the problem with most organizations, the problem with most organizations now is that they pick journalists that are already in line with what that organization believes.
So their values are all in line prior. Right?
Like the Guardian will pick someone, won't hire someone they'll hire someone that's left. If you're Sky News, you'll hire someone that's conservative. There's not a mix there of divergent opinions.
Yeah, right.
It's tougher that way.
But even someone doing their own critical thinking and finding out both sides of the fact, they're still going to come up with their own opinion.
Yeah. It is difficult.
So we've all got our own opinion when we're reporting, when we're telling a story or our events of what we've done the research on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you see yourself doing moving forward? Do you see yourself doing freelancing? Do you see yourself going into one of the left or right, or something that fits your values? Are you going to research the companies that you're going to go and work for?
Well, for me, I don't know. I'm just starting out because I'm going into freelance at the moment, and I want to see how far I can get in freelance, because I know I've got some good contacts that have made a lot of money and they have their own careers now just doing freelance. So I like the idea of doing that, because I feel like once I join an organization, then I'm kind of confined into I can't write something that's going to be slanderous or disagree with what the most people in that organization.
You've got the freedom. You've got the freedom of freelance, right?
And I feel like in freelance, it's going to be. I think it's a better moving forward for someone like me, because I can kind of jump rope with left and right, and I have a lot of different opinions on different things. So if I had to pick one place to work, then you kind of pigeonholed into one thing.
Sure.
So, and I think if I can get freelance to work for me, then that'd be really good, because I can write for whoever I want to.
Okay, so you were very honest before, Nic. You said actually that you felt that probably the study that you did at uni wasn't enough.
It wasn't that it wasn't enough. It just wasn't critical.
It wasn't critical.
It was pretty much 3 years of how to write an article.
Okay. So moving forward, are you going to spend more time in sharpening your skills within whether it be investigative journalism or whether it is in your own, I don't know, research abilities? Is there some sort of further courses or improvement that you can make to yourself?
12 points of CBD, PD a year, mate. You have to.
What can you do to improve yourself as a journalist moving forward?
I'm looking forward. Like most people will understand that the future of journalism is going to be in tech and video and podcasting. But this is what the stuff we weren't taught when we were at university. We were just taught about writing. So, like, I'm looking more into tech and how I can use that for like my journalism career.
Okay.
So I think that's definitely going to be the way forward. Like video is going to be a big part of my career as a journalist. So I'm looking into using more video.
So you're saying that the course lacks teaching skills around the production of journalism rather than actually how to do journalism.
Yeah, yes, and no. Like we used some camera stuff, but it was more like for like, you know, how would a morning show work and stuff like that. You know, this is not something that most critical journalists are going to use.
How do you increase your ability to think critically or investigate critically?
Well, it's
because the camera doesn't help that.
No, I know, but like I try and I watch Fox News and I watch CNN and I watch ABC and Sky News, and like I watch a lot of like journalists that I really like on like YouTube and stuff, and they have their own blogs that I really get interested in, and when I like hear something from them, I try and go and research what they said to make sure that fact's true. Try and tie it back to real events that have happened that can back things up, so you know if it's true or not.
So at this point, I'm not talking about future, at this point, are you going into trying to get hold of the people that they're reporting on, whether it's a politician or a policeman or a victim of a case? Are you trying to get hold of those people to find out their story or at all? Or
I'm more interested in like international affairs and like global news. So I just try to like I really like foreign policy and stuff like that. So I've kind of just written about that.
Okay, so are you right up to date when the US government releases a new whatever? Mm-hmm. Are you right in there researching how's it going to change their economic structure and so forth? And
yeah, I would say so. Like most things, like what the US does domestically is not as interesting to me, but what they do internationally. Okay. So when they do something internationally, I try and keep up with that.
So, for example, the US-Chinese relations within the South China Sea, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The Indian-Chinese relationships on the Himalayan border, which you experienced firsthand, that sort of thing. So that's what you would like to get into and start reporting further.
Exactly.
So you want to get paid to travel.
Well,
and
there's going to be a lot of journalists now make a lot of money through like social media as well. So like that, and that social media coupled with freelance would be two good revenue streams. You know, if you have multiple coming in, that would make it a bit easier. And then I really would love to be able to travel right now and go to a few of these places, but with the pandemic at the moment, it's just no point.
Yep. So how deep do you take your research? I think that's what Chris was getting at, because you said a second ago, I listen to Fox and I listen to CNN, and that's how you keep up to date with everything. Well, obviously not here to be a complete arsehole, but that's a bit of a worry, because to me, if we want to get into political journalism or provide a view on what's actually happening, that's going to involve reading legislation and actually reading the documents and the policies that are set, not putting the sum of. And I think that's what everyone should be doing. You shouldn't, you can't take. There's no way you can form a balanced view or an educated view just by watching both sides of the fence. And
no, but to keep up to date, like that's.
But is it keeping up to date though, mate? It's not, because you're only up to date with what they want you to hear.
Yeah, but I don't have as like infinity free time. Like there's only so much I can do in a small amount of time. Like if something happens in the news, I've got to go and just watch the news and see what happens. Like it's not like I can go and research every fact that happens. And
when you see that, do you then go, righto, this is what they're saying, let's go and find out how much of that is legit?
Well, it depends on I just finished writing an article about the International Criminal Court, and I went back and I found the Senate hearings from when the court was created back in 1998, and what the actual US senators said about when the court was created. And I have the whole transcript, and they documented what they said. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to go to what people said of what they said. Like I just went to the source, and then I could back check from then what else happened after that. That moment in time.
Yeah.
What was that article on?
It was on the US opposition to the International Criminal Court.
To the
International Criminal Court.
Okay.
Get him to write it down for you, mate.
Hasn't been published yet, so don't worry.
The company that you were working before, would you say it was called Reuters?
Reuters.
Reuters is a jail.
Thank you. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, in New York.
Yes.
So you're working for a jail?
No,
Reuters
is a jail. Reuters
is a news agency.
Is a news agency.
That's what you're confusing me now, right?
There's a European one in there?
I think it's European and UK.
You said he was working for Rikers.
Oh,
Rikers is a
I'm
jail.
asking him. I'm trying to clarify.
Canadian and UK.
Oh, is it Canadian?
And what was your job there as an intern?
Reuters has a different business model. They have a different business model. They write articles.
So
for
does
other-
Rikers.
Shut up, Red Dog. Jesus.
They publish articles for other news organizations to pick up. So if there's a big news story from the US, you go to the ABC or like the Sydney Morning Herald, and at the bottom it'll say Reuters.
So they're like the hub. So that's like the place to be then.
Yeah, kind of. Like it's not. Oh God, it wasn't fun being there because like they pump out so many articles so quickly.
You're bitching about working hard.
Yeah, no, but like it wasn't critical. Like articles was like there was some court case somewhere completely like it was like some celebrity had to write an article about that.
Right.
And every day it was like, there was some just like really fluff pieces that were like because their business models they have to sell articles. Their clients are like the Sydney Morning Herald and.
Don't take shit from him, Nick. By the way, mate.
I'm not worried.
He wouldn't work hard.
I'm not concerned.
He wouldn't work hard in an iron lung, but he's hoping you haven't listened to any other podcasts to see.
I listened to this one before, but yeah, if you understand what they need to make it work, so they have people buying their articles.
Yeah.
It's different, yeah.
So that's where they make their revenue by selling to media outlets.
Yeah, and a lot of the as well, they do a lot of video, which I was working with a lot. A lot of the if you watch a clip on like say in Channel 9, and it cuts away to like this person has the story, and it'll be like a few frames of like the beat. I say we did one about plastic waste. So we filmed someone at Woolies in Beecroft, talking about plastic at Woolies, and then we went to a beach and filmed just water and then like some plastic on the beach, but no sound, nothing over it. We would sell that package to Channel 9, and they would put their own voice over it and their own journalists in kind of the situation. So they have it pretty much the entire thing made, and then they would just add their own touch to it.
Very good.
Interesting.
You spoke a lot about US news. Do you read or follow any Aussie news?
Yeah, I keep up to date as much as most.
The Economist, is that or the Independent, anything at all? Or Financial Review, is that a source or not?
Yeah, I read the Fin Review a few times, like sometimes, but.
Because many of them are rehash and taking a lot of stuff from the US news, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mostly focus on US stuff.
Right.
I follow Australian politics as as much as any other engaged person, but it's not really my field that I want to pursue.
Okay, so let's go. So you said you like talking about politicians, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now with COVID and with Daniel Andrews, the other Chinese minister.
The honourable member for China.
So
China.
What's going on? How come we no longer hearing about branch stacking?
Branch stacking? What? Was it really that big of an issue?
What do you mean?
It
was a state problem that happened with a few members.
I think it was a whole country, but somehow is it because the Liberals are also doing that we have quiet and everything, and we muted the whole languaging, and we try to get the attention back to COVID?
No, that's just a problem of the news. The news, as soon as there's a shiny new object, it sticks to that for 1 second, and then I'll move on to the next thing. News has a huge problem with that staying on a topic. It can't find a problem and stick to it for long enough to make anything.
So how come they've been following the Trump stories for the last 4 years?
Because Trump every is a walking headline. Like every day it's something new. But every day it's something new with him. Like he does something shocking every day. So that's why it's different. Like the stories of like corruption here, the branch stacking, and like the sports short scandal at the beginning of the year, that wouldn't make headlines in the US. It wouldn't even make the back page of the news with like their level of corruption over there.
Wow.
Oh, jeez. So journalist over there it's fun then.
Well, like following Trump, it's a completely new landscape because there's just so much content they can use all the time, and like if you turn on CNN. Breaking news, like 24 hours a day.
Yeah, right.
So they are raking in so much money in the last 3 years of Trump.
So do you think our opinion of Trump in Australia is somewhat sheltered? So
How do you mean?
I haven't met someone who
Are we getting
Trump is
all
good.
The news?
Pardon?
Are we getting all the Trump news over here?
Yeah, are we getting a true indication of what Trump's like, or is it a little bit faded? Is he?
I would say it's to a degree. Like the problem with US news and Australian news, the problem with Australian news is no matter what happens in the US, we can't diverge our opinion from what they say. It's extremely rare that you'll find The Guardian or the ABC or Sky News or anyone that disagrees with something that would happen in the New York Times.
Right.
Like the New York Times around the world is the most influential newspaper, and like I really find it a big problem in Australia that no one in Australia is able to disagree with them. You know, after they say something, we kind of just rehash those articles and then say it ourselves. And so that happens a lot with Trump now.
How much control do the governments in whatever state or federal have over the media?
They have
Can they force their agenda?
Yeah, they have a lot more control recently because the government puts out a lot of information, and with the cutbacks in journalism, it's just easier for journalists to take that information and use it themselves. And secondly, of course, like whatever the government's opinion on foreign policy is, it is always the same as the journalists that are covering in that country. Like in Australia, we're very anti-China because our government's anti-China. In Russia, their news is very anti-American because the government's anti-American. In the US, their news is very anti-Venezuela and Iran and China because the US is against those countries. And it's the same around the world. You know, you look at wherever the news comes from, whatever that foreign policy of that government is pretty much reflected into that news system.
What about on a local level, though? Thomas is, I think, suggesting that branch stacking went away very quickly on purpose. Is that
the carpet?
ScoMo makes a call to the editor of the Daily Telegraph and says, let's not talk about branch stacking anymore, mate. Is that a thing?
That could, definitely, because one of the aspects of news is the sources. You don't want to piss off your sources. And so if that could happen, and that has happened in a lot of cases before, so if you...
What do you mean you don't want to piss off your
How the
sources?
fuck is that independent journalism?
No, I'm saying that's the problem, though. That's a huge problem. Sourcing news is a massive cost to journalists. And in an age where costs are a huge issue because of profits, sourcing news is really a lot more important because imagine if a journalist has access to another politician who leaks them information and gives them news. But if you piss that that politician off, you're going to get cut off.
Well, that's a complete conflict of interest then.
It is. That's the whole industry.
Wow, hold on. I've never thought
Hang on.
journalism like that.
Yeah.
I thought that in journalism,
Well, it's
there
not.
There's some
would be
integrity,
heroes
mate.
who
Yeah.
would say, I don't give a shit. I will stay home and live longer with mum and dad, but I'm going to just be ditching the truth and nothing but the truth.
But it's not like across the board. Every journalist is like that, but it can happen up in news organizations high up. You know, so it's definitely a problem.
I think that we found a way for you to become very famous, mate.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. I reckon that you will
It's
be
a
so
foreign
famous.
concept, but it sounds like.
Never heard of it before.
No, I'm serious.
How's it work?
We've just ascertained that the majority of the news that goes out there is governed by sources, and rather than call a source to account for doing the wrong thing, you'll brush over it because what if he doesn't tell me anymore? Well, who gives a fuck? If they're running the country into the ground, call them out on it because they don't deserve to be a source.
Yeah, but then afterwards you have 90,000 journalists trying to just put Nic Ford down and telling everyone in Australia that Nic Ford's raped this person, has stolen from this person, has broken the tree when he was working for this nursery. Yeah. And you know, so you and then in the end it's the fake news versus that one guy
So
who's
he's only
trying to just deliver the truth, isn't it? So, and that's how it's been swayed. You look at this. Just go back to the it's a bit of time to spin now because we do a bit of spin, right? And we love spin busting. I reckon the Russians have got nothing against Trump. They love Trump. They want him to stay there. But I think that there is something that is happening right now where Trump's saying, I'll say that I'm anti you, and you guys can say that you're anti me. But you know what, Vladimir, you and I, we know the game. Okay, we're going to work so that you've got a nomination now for life. Our mate C's got it for life already. So I'm going to try and get another 4 years. And then we're going to fill up our coffins. And in the meantime, fuck all of them. In the meantime, let's try and send out a message that I'm against you, you against me. But everyone has been spin busted.
The whole Russiagate narrative is a complete. I think it was a big fuck up from. I swear, yeah.
Yeah, mate. This is, mate. Now you're becoming one of us.
The Russiagate.
Hope your mum's not listening.
I think she cares. The Russiagate thing with like Trump has obviously a lot of ties with Putin, but the whole thing with the election in 2016, that was a big fake news story that happened. The whole story was built around something that was really not believable and like not factual. But because of the way the news works, you couldn't say it was not true because everyone, if you go back to the sports team metaphor, your sports team is against Trump. They're the the enemy. So no journalist was ever able to say that the Russiagate story was incorrect. Even most journalists could pick up that, it didn't really have many grounds, but no one could say that because then they would get, they would lose their jobs, they would get attacked from other journalists.
Yeah, but hold your thoughts, because I'm going to ask you to tell me your thoughts. Is it true? Is it not true that the Russians were involved? So don't say anything now. Let me open our second bottle.
How good was that, by the way?
Yeah,
Can I just say
it was
it
good.
got so much better as it went
I
along.
was about to say.
I think that's it.
When I first tasted it, was
Second glass was most
yeah.
needed to breathe.
So I think that it beat Chris.
Okay.
So all I have to do is beat Chris next week.
No, you have to beat him.
No, you got to beat me. No prizes for second place, mate.
No, but third place buys another
I
bottle.
see what you're saying. Right, I'm with you.
I'm off the hook.
You know what? I get to drink
boys.
good wine with good mates, so I didn't give a
Let's
rat's.
try this, because
Don't suck up, mate.
if this beats it, then we'll be fine. So we have a Mount Pleasant Lovedale 2011 Semillon Hunter Valley. It's got gold medals all over the place. Semillon, as you do know, it's the grape that is the preferred grape in the Hunter Valley. And the Lovedale from Mount Pleasant, that is that parcel that is famous just for that wine. Let's have a look. But this Semillon here should really give...
We've had the 2012 before.
I don't think we've had two whites in a row ever.
Yeah, we have.
We have?
Yeah. All right, cheers, boys. Let's try this out, and then we'll see, huh?
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
We've had 2012 before.
Okay.
No, I've got you.
Different wine.
Got to wait for the third sip. You need to... Whoa.
Did you bring 2 bottles by chance, Cameron?
Now, you have to like Semillon, though.
You have to wait. The third sip, mate, is the rule.
The aroma is not bad.
You've done enough wine tours of the Hunter Valley. They all say wait till the third sip.
What constitutes as a sip, though? Because I get a little bit confused, because a sip is usually like a...
The third glass.
Third sip. Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. Third sip there.
Guaranteed by the third bottle, it's going to taste great.
I think it's really nice as well.
Yeah, that's
like it.
really,
It's really
really
good.
nice.
And I'm not a wine drinker, so
No?
no.
Oh.
Don't you suck
Hey,
up
you're
to Thomas,
journalist,
mate.
you
The
mate.
vote's-
You're a journalist, mate.
Yeah.
You have to do both sides.
Yeah,
Red and
sure.
white.
that does not
No.
beat you.
You got to be consistent.
So, where were we?
We're talking about
Australian
put
politics?
a spin on things.
Yeah, well...
So is Trump then hating China and all this stuff that's going on with COVID and in the South China Sea? Is that then a spin for him to say, I'm protecting America from these people that are threatening our way of life? Putting the military into the South China Sea and putting so much, embargoes and tariffs and whatever you want to call on China. Is that a spin for him to say,
Yeah.
I'm protecting the
He
American
doesn't-
government, American people?
I think he, because the trade war that happened most recently, that costed America a lot of jobs and a lot of farmers went bankrupt.
Right.
And so he's not going to, the new sanctions he put on is only put on people. So those people can't travel to the US. So it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
That is basically going to have zero effect on the Chinese economy. Just a few people in the Chinese government are not able to travel to the US. And if they have bank accounts in the US, they might be frozen now. But that really doesn't mean anything.
Which no one can travel to the US at the moment anyway.
Yeah,
so-
why would they want to
But
go?
in saying that, how much of that has he actually released? So you've done that research into knowing that that's the fact of the sanctions that he's put on. How many of the American people know that? How many of the American people hear the fake news that he's protecting America by putting these?
It's ironic because in the US right now, you have both, before the election in November, you have both Joe Biden, who's the Democratic candidate, and Donald Trump, both putting out ads that show that the opposition candidate is too chummy with China. They're both attacking China and saying they're the hard ones on China and the opposition one is too soft. Like, I watched Joe Biden's campaign ad the other day and he was showing like Trump saying such nice things about Xi Jinping and like tweeting about how good a leader he is and stuff like that. And so like Trump's tune does change quite frequently with whatever's going on.
Right.
You know, it's been more hard on China, but like if you look 6 months ago, he was saying nice things about Xi Jinping.
Right.
It just changes with the times.
Right.
But it's easy for in a news cycle just to forget what it was said and just focus on what's happening now.
Right.
That's the spin. I mean, you know, it helps him get re-elected if he's now going to be tough on China.
So it looks like America needs a bad guy to point the finger at. I mean, years ago it was always Russia. Now it's China. Every time we turn around, it's China. And unfortunately, the Australian government's sort of gone the same way as well
Yeah.
with the things they're doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. There's always an enemy. can never not be an enemy.
China's not exactly doing great things for the world at the
Look,
moment.
they've got how many billions of people to feed?
You don't have to look too far to find a bad guy when they're pulling the sort of shit they've been pulling.
In the world, there's tons of bad guys, yeah. So it's not difficult.
Not all of them are inventing a disease to spread amongst the entire population and shut down the economy. They're not all doing that.
Someone was hungry and ate an uncooked bat, mate. Come on, let's be real.
Nah, I heard something the other day, and I haven't looked too deep into it anymore because I'm so over the coronavirus. It's not even funny. What does Alan Jones quote last night? That 99.85% of people recover from it, and we're shutting down the world over it. So I just don't care. But I did hear someone say that they've proven now that it dies instantly in UV light, which proves in their eyes that it was man-made in a laboratory, because as soon as it got outside, it dies. So who fucking knows? I'm more concerned. I've been sitting here spinning wheels since the talk 10 minutes ago about it doesn't sound like the source of all our information is completely governed by people fearful for their job.
Yeah.
Well, we got no fucking hope then. And what hope do you have? What hope do you have of ever getting paid apart from picking a side?
That's why I go freelance.
Yeah, but is your information going to get picked up? It's only going to get picked up.
I know. I'm at the very beginning of my career, so I'll let you know in a couple of years.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not even a thing about you. But we're even if this person is raping this person, let's talk about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and all that shit. How and now Jeffrey Epstein and all that stuff that it just is not getting. People would rather get $500 a week in their bank account than point out the fucking criminals and assholes in the world. That's a huge fucking issue.
Didn't it lead back to the Epstein thing? Lead back to the royal family as well.
Oh, we can go back. Yeah,
it's still ongoing. They've asked Prince Andrew to testify in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right,
but that took I just watched on Netflix, the Jeffrey Epstein filthy rich thing. That's taken. He started doing that shit in 1996, and it's 2020. He only got arrested 2 years ago, and then promptly killed
Last year.
Yeah.
So he was killed, right?
Oh, we don't know.
We don't know. He hanged
That's
himself.
what I thought.
He hanged himself. However, there's broken bones. So,
yeah, and the security guards were
He
asleep.
leant forward and gently hung himself, but broke all the vital bones in his fucking jaw and neck. And the most secure prison in the United States, cameras just weren't happened to be working at the time. Yeah. So no, he definitely killed himself. But
he had dirt on the Queen, like the royal family. He had dirt on the Trumps and the Clintons, like the three most powerful entities in the world.
But the so many journalists would have had dirt on them for 20 fucking years and haven't said anything because they're scared of their job.
That's exactly the point.
But how can you work in an industry like that? How can you go to bed at night going, I know all this shit,
this is what we're talking to the kids.
Yeah, I know.
The thing about journalists that have families and they have like mortgages to pay and they have their own
livelihood. Get a job in real estate, mate. It's way more ethical. Fucking hell.
I'm not saying they're being ethical.
So being a freelance journalist, if let's look at the real side of it. If you went after the royal family on the side of Epstein's story,
dead.
Yeah, him may best off not have a family at all. Be a single guy that doesn't live in one place for longer than 24 hours. If that's the case, if that's what's going to come of it. I mean, have you looked into that, being a freelance journalist? Have you heard of stories like that where people, freelance journalists, where they've had to stop researching because of,
the Saudis, mate. The Saudis killed a bloke in their embassy, and that was in the US.
That was
America let him get away with it. Yeah. That is on camera. The cameras were working then. Walked in, didn't walk out. Came out in bags.
No, but the guy, before he entered, he actually pushed the record button on his Apple Watch.
Really? I didn't know that.
So it was recorded.
So who's the recording then? Someone else?
No, so it was recording and sending it straight away to another machine.
Like to a live stream.
And they chopped him into millions of pieces.
Yeah.
He left in a few garbage bags, that bloke.
Wow.
Yeah, on the day, apparently also, like anyone who worked in the embassy was sent home. So listen, we know the four of us sitting in here, we are not ruling this world.
Fuck's sake.
I don't rule.
That's all I wanted.
We should be.
I don't rule the remote control at home. Seriously.
I was hoping that the journalist in Nick was going to tell us he's now found a way of keeping the world more honest. And I think that the generation of journalists that Nick is now going to be representing are actually made up of guys who are way more interested in the truth than the back of their back pocket. And I think that you guys have got an amazing opportunity to really go out there and say, all right, here is what those journalists and the renowned ones have done. Here is what I've done. And I don't know, mate, how much you need a week, because maybe we should gang up together and start something here, boys, where we have our own journalist here who's gonna get some real shit, and then from there we're gonna go to the politician and say to them, "You're full of shit. This is what our sexy journalist is saying."
Yeah, like that's a good idea, but like.
But what?
The problem? No.
But it's a good idea. But
me, mate.
you're gonna butt after you
My
say
name is
good idea.
Thomas, not butt.
the whole problem with the entire industry, like it's so built up that if you go against it, if any small entity goes against it, they will be destroyed so quickly, and their reputation will be tarnished.
So what are you hoping to achieve by going into it then? This is the bit where I'm starting to have conniptions.
Well, like, okay, fine.
You've
Like,
studied a course that you didn't like. You know the whole fucking industry is corrupt. You know that if you do stand up, you're going to be squashed quicker than anything. What are you hoping to be? What's the plan, man? What's the plan?
this is like, just personal. Like the whole future of journalism can go through social media now and freelance. Like I don't have to worry about these same problems that journalists inside the industry have to worry about. There's definitely ways of making money that are outside of the traditional ways of making money in journalism. So it's not the big concern of mine.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like my passion is politics and
So, Dean,
and
do
the
you
news.
think you're going to go do? You said a couple of times you want to do media with social media and get the news out there. Do you think now the speed in which we can get the news out to the public is going to help you to not have to worry about repercussions?
Well, like I'm not really in the industry of getting the first news out. You know, that's not like there's.
But not sensationalized, but the true core facts. If you find some dirt on someone, and instead of doing little by little, if you get all your facts, and then let's say you were the first one to discover the Epstein thing and then release it, right? And you did that through video, through social media networks. That would sort of protect you on the other side of it, getting that out quite quickly, and you'd have that. Is that sort of what you're looking at doing, rather than release bits by bit by bit by bit, doing it all together and hitting the public with a story that no one's heard of before?
Yeah, I agree. But that's to get to that point where like you have a big impact, you really need to get a big audience first.
Well, I mean, if you've got a big hammer, that's going to be a big
Yeah,
impact,
I know.
right? So,
Yeah. But like, hopefully one day I definitely would love to be able to get to that.
You can't get an audience without sensationalising bullshit.
Well, you can get an audience now through social media and just having your own opinion and being consistent in like what is factual and what is not factual, and keeping to the same tune that regardless of what happens, you stick to the facts, and that would go a long way. Being genuine in social media and being genuine in your own articles will go a lot further than what the current traditional landscape is at the moment.
We've been doing it for 20 episodes now. I think we've got 4 followers. We're doing
3 of them are in this room.
We carry a big hammer every week. We usually end up hitting each other.
I've got a question. Get a question for you with journalism and media in general. It's always on the negative side of the news.
All the time.
99.9% of the time.
Yeah.
Does good news or good feelings don't sell? Is that why?
Absolutely. Like people don't you see on the news every night like there's been a car crash or someone died here. It's just the more gripping. Like I was taught one thing when I was in university: if it bleeds, it leads.
Wow.
So if
it bleeds,
wow.
it leads.
Riding starts, shooting starts. What is it?
Yeah. What?
What did Trump say? Riding starts.
When the riding starts, the shooting
when the looting starts.
Looting starts, shooting starts.
That's the
When
only
it
reason.
bleeds, it leads. Right?
Yeah. So when you're writing an article, you put the most graphic news at the front of the article. That's going to get people more hooked on the article itself.
Right, so that's why at the end of the news they always usually left off with a funny or a good feel-good story or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody wants to see that their life is just that little bit better than that poor bastard that just died in the crash.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But that's a more of a philosophical kind of argument, I guess. Like, have you heard of like Schadenfreude? Like, someone else's pain is like my pleasure.
Right.
It's probably something to do with that.
Right.
Like we like knowing that.
My life is not as shit as I think it is.
Yeah, like you look at someone else like fuck, like what is going on there? Like it's terrible, and I don't know, just like everyone, but also like it's just so shocking. People just gravitate to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably why.
Okay.
So let's have a look now. Where do we get your channel? Where are you on? How do we follow your news?
On YouTube.
Okay.
And Twitter.
So what do I type in when I'm on YouTube to find your stuff?
Just Nic J Ford.
Nic J Ford.
G.
Nic G Ford. G stand for
Gregory.
Gregory.
My middle name.
Nick G. Ford.
Gangster.
No, because I thought it was Gerald Ford after the president of America.
Right.
So Nick G. Ford.
I've never thought of that before. Yeah. Wow.
All right. So, and then would you have your news? What about guys? What about giving Nick a few ideas? Let's come up with maybe 5. Either it's spins or bullshit news that maybe Nick could find and chase and make a name for himself. What would they be?
Yeah, good question.
I start first because since I came up with this thing,
You have an idea.
I just listen.
Okay, question without notice.
I swear, I just came up with that question now. Okay.
Okay.
But while I was listening to you talking about this, why don't you do I mean, we spoke about it in length. So why don't you do a piece on the difference between good journalism and fake journalism and demonstrate it to people?
That would be an interesting piece. Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. I like that.
You know, I mean, he makes sense, and I was shocked when you said that too.
Yeah.
You know, go into journalism, you say the stuff, and they're going to destroy you. So you
Not gonna
only
say it.
covering whatever is going to save your life. What about you going out there and do this? Because right now, I think, mate, you could be that knight in the shining armor coming up with like, hold on, this is how we revolutionize things. You know, for the moment, you have young people in so many countries around the world who've got nothing to lose, who allow the police to put them in jail because they're having a voice. I think that maybe journalists need right now a voice that's going to stand up and say, no, have a look, this is what it is, and I prove it to you how it was a lie, and I have even this guy here, and have a look at how I prove it. Wouldn't that be a great picture?
That's a good idea. I'll look into that one. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's what I was going to say.
No, that was his wine. We're doing that to his wine. It's a serious thing. We had this conversation last week about real estate agents, and it's across every single industry. But we're in an industry where it's prone to lies and con artists and people saying whatever they have to say to get the job, which is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And you can't, I don't think, how old are you?
25.
25. You can't be 25 years of age and about to jump in an industry just to become another journalist where you're only going
Don't
to
become
say
a number, man. Yeah.
you're only going to say what gets you paid and what gets you laid, hopefully, but not because something might get you shot. It's a scary prospect, and if that's what's coming out of the schools and that's where everyone is going to end up that's heading into it, journalism. I mean, I use a quote that I'm trying everything I can not to be a real estate agent because what I mean by that is I don't want to be the person who's only going to say what they've got to say to get paid.
Yeah.
And it's rattled me a bit.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I saw that too, yeah. What's another subject, boys?
I think the Australian government needs a neutral party in Australian politics. Not the Australian government, Australian people need a neutral party in the politics when they explain the politicians at a simple fact.
Old Switzerland over there would love that.
I just need to know, and have no left or right understanding. So no CNN or Fox or whatever.
Can I go back to your last point?
Go.
The problem with the industry is that the people that make it to the place, it's not like they don't believe what they say. The people that get to positions of power in journalism, they believe what they're talking about, but they'll only be employed because of what they believe. Like the people that read the news every night, they're only handpicked because they don't think they're lying. They think they believe that stuff.
Yeah, but then they don't say the other half that they don't believe in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Sure.
So yes, they may believe what they speak.
They'll rationalise in themselves why that's incorrect.
Yeah, I understand the problem.
Yeah.
I'm
That's why
saying
Cam is saying for you
the problem
to
is
expose
For me, it's
That's
different
right.
because I have a different view from those people. So it's much more difficult for me because I have a critical opinion of most.
But you're going to get put to the point where it's either put food on the table or say what you're actually thinking.
No, but like no, in
You are going to get put to that point, mate.
In 2020, it's a different landscape. I think there's a lot more ways around this now. Like you look at Joe Rogan, he's a podcaster that just talks crap about politics.
Shit, yeah.
And he's probably signed a $100 million deal with Spotify.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
he doesn't.
we know.
He isn't, huh? What?
We know.
We know.
You guys be next.
We got a $100 deal with Spotify.
with McDonald's.
Yeah, but it's not just about the coin. He's saying what he thinks.
But you're saying it will be about the coin for me.
I'm saying if you're calling,
I don't
you're going to
think
call
he
yourself,
I'm
you're
just
going to label yourself a journalist, and what we're talking about here is that journalists cannot say what they're actually thinking.
That's the ones that are in the industry, that are in like the organizations.
Yeah, but hold on. In his defense, remember what we spoke about a few podcasts ago. we ourselves, it's taken us quite a little while to even sit in this kind of wine and wisdom podcast. Because we in real estate, we're going back to seeing our clients. We spoke about this. We after this, we still have to go out there and make a living. We don't receive governmental money because we are minister, whether we are in COVID time or not, and whether we're breaking the rules of social distancing by driving 250 Ks and seeing our girlfriend or not. So we have to make a living, right? So even for us, it's taken us quite a little while to have a bit of courage to sit down and say, you know what? No, real estate is a hard job. Wine and wisdom is our hobby. It's our outlay, the way we're going to get things out. However, it's taken us quite a few podcasts to now starting to see that, hey, this is serious shit. What we're doing is we're starting to stir the consciousness in Australia and maybe around the world in a lot of other things. And now starting to sit down with young up-and-coming dudes who have got the responsibility maybe to do this job in the future and probably lead this industry to their own way, because, mate, the old guys are going to be going. The new guys, we're sitting in front of them. How do we foster an environment where these kind of guys can blossom?
Well, it comes down to what's between their legs, and what I mean by that is the balls that it's going to take to stand up and not worry about where the next paycheck's coming from.
I don't think everyone will fall into that category, though, Cam. Not everyone.
No, that's what scares me.
No, but I think it's a good thing for those people to come out and say, and like Nick, to come out and say, this is what I believe, and this is what, as a freelance journalist, I think there will be that small percentage of journalists of whatever industry, that's just journalism, to stand up and say, we'll do it our way, we'll do it differently. I think there are people, and I think there is platforms for them to be able to share that quite quickly, whether it's through social or whatever. I think they'll be able to do that.
But then the problem
What platform? Is the platform
Yeah, I was
control?
about to say. Yeah, I was just
Well,
about to say.
that's
You took the words right out of my mouth. Oh, it must have been while you were tweeting me.
Hey, listen.
Well, you can't go on a
yeah.
Even if, listen,
Hey?
guys, for the moment, I've been.
I thought I hit a good note there.
I've
I hit a better note than his wine.
forced to.
It's dry, isn't it? Dry.
Oh, not good.
I've been forced to watch. What is it? The Voice lately.
You say you've been forced.
Yeah,
So you had toothpicks under your eyes.
mate. I've
been at your house when you said-
3 girls against me. Alexander goes back to work after.
I've been there when he says, "Shut up, the voice is on."
and even the voice apparently is controlled.
Rigged.
Even the choice of who gets to the final is rigged. So just, if everything is rigged, what are we doing? When are we going to have one of the singers standing up and saying afterwards, I know I have signed some paper, all right? I know there's some confidentiality, but
Fuck
fuck
you.
you.
Hey.
Yeah?
There you go.
Sue me, I've got nothing.
So we're coming back to the fact that if we're going to have a journalist that is freelancing and going to tell the truth, we're still going to get fake news because it's even still going to be altered to the.
No, he'll be censored. So I didn't pick up on it straight away, but when you're talking about building on social, you can't. Twitter's censoring everybody. YouTube is censoring everybody who speaks out of line So when you talk about I'm going to be a freelancer, so I'm not going to be under the same constraints as someone who's working for a major news organisation, if your career is beholden to the owners of YouTube and the owners of Twitter, you're in exactly the same situation as the people who are working for the Daily Telegraph.
Yeah, that is true. But at the moment, though, the people that are getting censored are the far right and the far left.
Well, it's a fucking problem because they've got opinions.
Yeah, but
They might be batshit crazy.
You might be far north, so and everybody's looking at you going, "Where's this guy coming from?"
What is it they say? It's the day that people take their opinions as facts. It's a problem. And for the moment, everyone's opinion is fact.
Yeah,
It's a slip. The slope is very slippery.
Mate, the number of people who've got no fucking idea about what masks can do about viruses and say to me, mate, those fucking idiots telling me not to wear the mask and they know shit about, and I'm listening to this shit and I'm going, who the fuck are you to tell me this shit? Because you don't know that shit either. And then the people talking to me now about immunization, because it's the next topic coming up, boys. All right, it's going to be the immunization. And I'm not going to allow myself to be immunized with COVID and all this shit. Do you know what I felt like asking them? How does immunization work? How do we come up with the thing? Because I can guarantee you, 90% of people would shut up because they wouldn't know. Yeah, they understand the word, but they wouldn't even know what it takes.
Yep.
Apparently in America, there's millions of eggs because to create, not a serum, but a vaccine,
antivirus.
What is it? A vaccination.
Yeah.
You have to use an egg. And apparently in America, there is not a factory, but a huge storage place of eggs. Because, and I don't think they'll have enough even to create
the vaccine.
enough eggs for the vaccine to be done.
Wow.
Right? And so there's plenty of this shit, but you have to understand all that process. I mean, I'm not saying I understand a whole lot. You have to study and have a look at doctors. So today, what has the White House decided? Well, no longer will hospital numbers of cases and death, all right, no longer will they go to the CDC, right, which is the Center of Disease in America, right? And now, do you know who's going to get it first? The Trump administration. And then from then on, the information will just go out to the world.
Oh my God.
Yeah, listen, but you have to recognize the guy is good. The guy is good.
Trump.
Yeah.
In a sense, you mean like he's
in
good
the
at
sense that
controlling
he'll
things.
never lie down, right?
Yeah,
he
yeah.
loses here. He loses with Fauci. He's gone on to a week of trying to destroy Dr. Fauci. It doesn't work. It actually has gone against him. Now, he doesn't call Dr. Fauci by Dr. Fauci. He calls him Anthony. Anthony is a good mate of mine. And Anthony is very good with me. But then he gets Navarro to spread out the bad news. And so all these things happen. And it's just such a spin. Listen, 2 days ago, the new book, I think it was Too Much, Never Enough, has come out from Mary Trump. I've been digesting that book because, guys, anyone who wants to study about human nature and start loving Trump a little bit more may want to read the book, because you will realize that the poor Donald Trump is nothing else but the fruit of his education. And you probably will be able to go behind the psyche of why the guy does what he does. And in many ways, all of our life, we are on automated kind of control. Our behavior has been predicted from the day we were born through maybe 2 or 3 years of education, of upbringing, of mom not being around and dad being real tough and wanting certain things to happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't get his love, and it turns an individual into what he is. Very, very interesting.
Well,
so what are we going to do with this young man? What can we do, boys, to either help him? Because I only came up with one. None of you came up with even one.
I want an
idea of
investigation into the NRL referee's relationship with Cameron Smith for the Melbourne Storm.
oh,
Thank
here
you.
we go.
I think that's
There's
more.
definitely something there.
Oh, there's 100% something there. I just sold a house to an NRL ref, and he's getting his moving in thing in a brown paper bag addressed from Cameron Smith. It's going to be a sensational one.
I think you are like me, Thomas. We've got no idea what he's talking about.
Sport, mate. Sport.
Oh, no,
Exercise.
thanks.
Exercise
Oh,
occasionally.
yeah. You look like
I
you're doing
have
some
no
exercise.
no problem talking about exercise.
It's just, I mean,
I really want to talk about real sports.
what, real sports?
Formula One.
Oh, I'm on McLaren. I'm riding McLaren home hard this year.
What about Formula One, brothers?
Yeah.
Sounds like Vettel might be going to Aston Martin, which is Racing Point, that pink.
No, Aston Martin. Isn't Aston Martin Red Bull?
No. It's going to be
Racing Point's Mercedes.
Point, yeah. And Racing Point is going to be Aston Martin. And do you know what happened? Now they're talking about kicking out Perez so that Vettel can have the seat. Because obviously Stroll, having daddy's pocket, has decided, I don't like the Mexican. They should go back to the other side of the wall. And I would rather have the German. Very, very interesting. So
I'm keen for next year.
sports.
There's a few different teams coming up.
Yeah, so that's your subject about sports. What about your subject?
I think it'd
man?
be politics, man. I think there's an election coming up. I think the Labor and Liberal Party have a lot to answer to. I think it's a lot of grey area between the two of them. One's going to point one figure about one thing, and the other's going to point the other thing. I think we need someone to sort of clarify the truth. Mm-hmm. So, for example, just off the top of my head, the Liberal government will say, well, the Labor was branch stacking, so forth and so forth and so forth. We need to say something along the lines of, that's true. The Labor government was branch stacking in, 1990 and 2020, 19 and 2020. But then turn around and realise that the Liberal government were doing the same thing in, I think, the 2014, 2013.
I think anyone really looked into it. I think a lot of electorates actually do it. It's
But
pretty
a
rare.
lot of people don't know that. And that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of and I'm just picking one topic, branch stacking for one. And there's a lot of others.
No, I think the branch stacking is going to be very good. However, before we go any further with those tips, your life is fine. I mean, you got no skeleton in the closet. There's nothing. They're going to come at you.
I haven't killed anyone yet, so it's fine.
They're going to come at you. So you better make sure you level with us here right now. So
No.
Because we don't want to be associated with a serial killer or someone with a skeleton in the closet. Because when you're going to come out...
It'll be good coverage.
It is true that, there's no such thing as bad news. Every news is good news. Now, I think that if you could come up with something that is going to stir the crap out of people, not the general, but it's important. And I think branch stacking is one. This is the question. We're talking about spins a lot. Why aren't we talking about it? I understand you're talking about, the news doesn't like to latch on one thing. But they do. Because if they find something that is big, they'll do. And so why is it overnight, the Daniel Andrews went from, he might be good to he may be bad to he's a dictator, and now he's closed everything.
Okay, but do we, you look at it one by one, those measures aren't, the closing the down of Victoria is probably a good move. I think we can all agree on that, can't we?
No, but why are we no longer hearing about
the branch stacking?
Well, he went from one day, mate, he was running the state, doing whatever he wanted. The next day he called Anthony Albanese and said, please take over my party, and no one's allowed vote for him until 2023. No one's allowed vote in the Victorian Labor Party until 2023. To the next day we're bringing in the army to make sure people are staying apart from each other, drinking schooners, to now no one can get out of Mexico.
What the boys are saying...
Shouldn't that be happening? We want to lock down...
Doesn't matter if it should be happening or not,
what we're saying
mate.
is, are they glazing over the story previously to hide something else?
Right.
Are they pushing the stories along
are they locking down
to hide
Are they
things?
locking down people, or are they locking down journalists?
What? They're not locking down journalists. What's the big issue with branch stacking? It's a state problem.
Fucking corruption,
No.
mate.
There's
a big problem with it.
The big issue is this. The guy that got ousted
Yeah.
was ousted a few years before Daniel Andrews got him back.
So the bloke that Daniel Andrews hired, who had all the Jeffrey Epstein dirt on Daniel Andrews, all of a sudden is the worst bloke on the planet, gets punted out. Andrews goes and gets federal Labor's help, and then all of a sudden there's a housing commission tower in Melbourne who is locked down, and we're never, ever going to talk about the bullshit again. I actually wish people had focused less on fucking Donald Trump and what's going on in our own backyard. My 13-year-old...
The problem is that Donald Trump is...
My 13-year-old son talks to me about walls in fucking Mexico. I said, mate, worry about walls in Tukli. He goes, why aren't you worried about Donald Trump? I said, because he doesn't live in Carry-On. What are we doing?
But it's a funny thing because what he does actually does affect us. I've spoken that
in a massive sense, but
it affects us all the time.
So explain to me how what he does affects me. Educate me.
Well, for example, it will affect you in the way that if he decides for his re-election, that the only way out now, because he's running out of all option, is to go into war against China. And he's going to create that by having some kind of boat being sunk in the South China Sea. Mm-hmm. Suddenly now America is into war. Why? And war is pretty good because in times of war, people don't change presidents, right? They tend to stick with the same one. So once he has that, what do we do as Australia? Because Australia has already been involved. We have already, in the last few weeks, we have already apparently signed up to brand new weaponry and planes and all of this stuff,
$270 billion worth.
And that's not money going to help our economy to get back up from COVID, is it? Because, mate, those
it's definitely not going to feed the homeless. We're going to go.
There is a lot of that on
shit.
I rather we buy bike for 100 bikes, like all of those 747 that are not flying, fill them up with bomb, and then get them flying if we need problems, if we have problems. So you have a look at all of these things that happen, man. And the South Chinese Sea, and I see your articles, and I thought it would be a good article to raise with young Nick today, but these are all the distractions that are really hiding the real stuff. Yeah. So I'm sorry, man. Trump is a big thing because he gets into a war with China.
But we focus on every single thing he does, right? So I get the war thing. I get it. You're 100% right, and that would affect us. If he puts us in a war with China, then we're we're going to war with China. But all the other shit that we over here are obsessed with every single word that comes out of his mouth, just like they're obsessed with every single word that comes out of his mouth. And while that's going on, you got China Andrews and you got Scotty from marketing, and you've got you got Palaszczuk up there completely destroying the tourist economy, and Comrade Palaszczuk completely destroying the hospitality and tourism sector in Queensland, which just happens to be their biggest earner. But we're too worried about old mate said that black people don't matter or something.
No. But hey, do you want to see another one? And hopefully you have looked into that too. But China wanted to punish Australia. So what did they do? Barley. What did they do when they stopped buying barley from Australia?
Well, the American government has got a bit to answer on this too, because the Trump turns around and goes, it's not fair what China did to Australia with the 80% reduction in their barley purchases, and then went backdoor and sold the 80% to China.
So, mate,
there's no barley in carry on there.
That doesn't affect us?
There is. It's in the beer, bro.
Because it does affect us big time. Big time it does affect us.
That's all right. It's all right, mate.
No, we just rinsing with our last bottle here. We're just rinsing.
I want you to know too, Nick, me having the thoughts that I've been having here isn't a thing about or at you.
I'm not concerned. No,
but it's a worry, mate. It's a thing that we talk about thinking critically. We need to think about critically about where we're going and what we're doing as individuals as well. And there's been like you've thrown out two arguments. One, the whole industry's fucked and we're all governed by who's paying the bills. But two, it doesn't matter because I'm going to do it on social media. But social media is governed by
personal. No, but social media isn't governed to the extremes that like you're probably thinking it is.
Oh,
not yet, though. Not yet.
No, not yet. But at the moment, I have no concerns about.
They pick and choose over.
Once upon a time, Fox News and CNN probably weren't governed as strictly as they were either.
So, mate, if I don't set my
laws in CNN that said you can't say that, you know, like,
but they just won't publish it.
I know, but I can publish whatever I want on YouTube. There's no one can fire me from YouTube
at the moment.
Sure.
This is what we're saying.
But like there's at least another 10 years until.
They can 100% fire you from YouTube. We've already established if you're too far left in their opinion or too far right in their opinion.
When I mean too far left, these are conspiracy theorists. These are like radical people that think, you know, the world's flat and that, you know, black people have different DNA than the rest of the country.
It's gotten a lot more.
Yeah, no. Listen, there's idiots that I know very close to me that still believe that we haven't gone on the moon, okay, that we haven't landed. So there's plenty of shit happening. Now, this is the thing, though, about the firing or not firing. With what China has done lately with Hong Kong and how they repeal some of the legislation, you know that what you, an Aussie, what you write on YouTube against China can be held against you. And that until this week, I think, or last week, when Australia signed nullified the extradition treaty that they had, you would have been sent back to China.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to be sent back because I'm not a citizen of China.
No, it doesn't matter, citizen or not.
No, this new law, but Australia's not going to send me back.
I get it, but that's why we had to renege on that stuff too.
Yeah, but like I know, it just depends on the laws and the citizenship as well. Like,
well, listen,
they're not going to extradite an Australian citizen to China.
Anything that anyone was writing can be held, especially if you're Chinese. Sure.
Yeah, but I have no concern with that because
but
I hope my government won't send me
you
there.
are Aussie. You land in China.
That's where the issue starts.
Whether you are Aussie or not, you're gone.
Yeah,
that's different.
Once I'm in their territory, the Australian government doesn't have any control over me.
Yeah.
So they can do whatever they want.
So find cocaine Cassie, mate, and offload the shit. That's the point.
Anyway, so we have a few topics here. Any other topics that we can share with this young man? I think I don't know. We need to find something because maybe we should have some kind of like a 15-minute talk about news where this man can just fill us with some news. I don't know. We need to find something because I reckon
we're going to have to let it rattle around in between the ears for a little
bit.
We're
going to have to think a little bit, because I think that the future of news are into these young men who got nothing else to lose but just the news. Because for the moment, everyone is after their pocket and their job.
Yeah.
Scary, right? Man.
Absolutely.
Scary. How's that $10 bottle of wine you just opened?
Well, it's actually
not bad.
Fucking 15%. That's
it's
true. Jesus Christ.
It's actually not bad.
It's
called heavyweight.
It's got a picture of me on the front.
Match us three.
Hey.
Listen, man, it's been fantastic to have you around. So I'm sure we'll get you back because I think I'd like to hear next time maybe about your news. We'll go onto YouTube and look for some of your videos called Nic Ford. It would be great for you maybe to come back and talk to us about some of the news. In the meantime, why don't you...
It'll be G-Force once he gets
close
famous.
this podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on, and we'll hear back from you guys next week.
That's it.
G-Force out.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks,
Thank
boys.
you so much, mate. Thank you.